Hello, Erin. Nice to see your work this week. Well, first the painted color wheel. Gee, from the looks of things here, I would say that you don't have the right yellow. Your yellow is looking like an ochre color. And I'm also wondering about the red. When I look to the violets, they seem as though they're turning brown. And generally, the problem there is that your red is not one that leans in the direction of violet, so you need a quinacridone for that. Um, Now, with your digital color wheel, very ambitious. Nice shapes here. I checked all your primaries and secondaries, and the RGB values are good. I'd like to attract your attention to the couple of violets or blue violets, magenta violets, just south of magenta. And those, for instance, are not fully saturated colors. And what we'd like to have here is full saturation, not just for the primaries and secondaries, but also for all those intermediate colors. Kendall, a very neat painted color wheel here. I'm a fan of your blue to yellow area with the greens. Nice interval there. The violets are looking a little dark. I'd say add a tiny touch of white. And with the oranges, a little more interval in a couple of instances. Now, the digital color wheel, well, thank you for making the primaries and secondaries more prominent. That really makes a lot more sense now. I'm delighted by your idea, as I expressed before. However, I feel very firmly that clip art doesn't have a place in work done in art school. So I'd like you to take a look at the other file that I posted in the discussion for some ideas. For instance, in Illustrator, you could use a brush tool to draw a silhouette, or in Photoshop, you could use a photo in the background. Hello, Danielle. This is a lovely painted color wheel. A lot of care went into making this. If I had any suggestion, it might be that perhaps the violet is a tad dark. And to resolve that matter, I suggest adding a tiny touch of white for mixing violets with ultramarine in future. Now, I've just taken a peek at your digital color wheel that's come in recently, and I would like you to revisit the instructions for that assignment. Hello, John. This is an exceedingly neat presentation. I'm wondering about your primaries here. I think that your yellow might have been more lemony. Now, that's not necessarily a fault of yours. Sometimes it's hard choosing just the right yellow, and this could be a cadmium yellow medium or even a cadmium yellow light that you have. But I can see that it works better for oranges than for greens. Additionally, with greens, cerulean is the blue that you'd want to use, and I am guessing that you used ultramarine here. Likewise with violets, well, you need a red leaning in the direction of violet. That would be quinacridone. I noticed that you have added a little bit of white to bring out the hue in the violets. However, the hue is not quite perfect, and I think that's owing to not having the best red. Well, hi, Beverly. I'm glad to see your work, but on the other hand, I believe that this is the same draft that you posted earlier, which I have reviewed in drafts, and I'd like you to take a look at what I said about it there. You know, Perhaps you'll post a revision, and I'll take a look at that and give you notes in the grade book. Nina, this is a positively beautiful color wheel. Your colors are right on. With regard to your mixed black, it looks like it's leaning a little in the direction of yellow. In other words, it's brownish. I think that if I were you, I'd start with ultramarine and cadmium red light to make a blackish color, and maybe just add a little tiny bit of yellow. Hello, Vicky. What a lovely presentation with your painted color wheel. I have difficulty finding anything to point out here. Maybe the one little thing would be that the interval between red, violet, and red is a bit of a jump. Now, with your digital color wheel, your colors are fully saturated. They are right on and arranged well. The small stars vary in size and proportion a little bit. If I were you, I think what I'd do there is make one and copy and paste it until I had the right number of stars or flowers, whatever they might be. And then I'd go about changing the colors as needed. Interesting to see what you did in the center here. I believe you've got one more file, but I can't access it right now, so please see my email on that matter. Angie, neat work with your painted color wheel. Let me take a look here. Most of this looks great, but red violet is looking more like magenta, and I wonder if that yellow was tinted. Okay, now the digital color wheel. Well, nice revisions. At first when I saw this, I thought that the bird body looked like it might belong to a bird other than a peacock. Adding the crown helps with that. Nice job distorting the array of feathers too to make them look more lifelike, akin to the bird body. When I look for RGB values for the perfect, say, red, I don't see those. However, the arrangement is correct. That's to say that cyan is opposite red and so on. Hello, Vicky. This is a neat presentation. Do you notice some similarities between yours and John's? I think that in both cases, you guys don't have the best primaries for all the tasks at hand. Let's see. I think that for your green, you want to have cerulean, and I believe this green was mixed with ultramarine. Also, your blue-green is tinted so much so that we notice it, and when you add just a tiny touch of white to reveal the hue with colors mixed with ultramarine, the idea is not to let them look as though they're tints. Now, with your violets, I'd say you need a red that leans in the direction of violet. Hi, Megan. Your colors look pretty good. Let's see. A little more interval between red, orange, and orange would be good. Maybe less between yellow, orange, yellow, and yellow, green. With your greens, well, I'm wondering if you used ultramarine. You're better off with cerulean. And with the violets, the color is good, but maybe the interval's too great between red, violet, and red. As you probably gathered, the goal was to paint on other paper and to snip out the swatches and glue them to the color wheel template. Kat, a very neat presentation here with your painted color wheel. Let's see. Well, maybe we could want for greater interval with your greens or your violets, and maybe, for instance, less interval between red, violet, and red. Now, with your digital color wheel, wow, look at how much more control you have here compared to the draft. Colors look great. I'd like to suggest that you crop your work a little less close so that the shapes aren't butted up against the edges as we see on right, left, and bottom. Also, let's take a look at placement. Notice on top, the two ovals are a little ways away from the red rectangle, whereas at the bottom, the two rectangles are in line with the cyan oval, which is to say that things are just a touch more crowded toward the bottom. Hi, Derek, taking a look at your painted color wheel. A lot of care went into making this, I can see. Now, if there's anything that really might be done a little better, it could be that your violet is a tad too dark. Maybe add just a touch of white to reveal the hue there. Maybe red violet needs more violet in it. Now, your digital color wheel certainly has 24 steps. And I can see that this took some time to assemble too. I enjoy the presentation, the idea. Now, the colors here are not all fully saturated. If we look toward the bottom, there's a dark green. Remember that the saturated colors are going to be top right of the color picker field, and I did give you RGB values for those. Did you get to see the lesson that I recorded for you? Did that work for you? Also, I am not finding an obvious cyan, for example, or maybe a magenta, and I want to make sure you know the difference between the paint color wheel and the digital one. This file could have better resolution also, and I'd like you to take a look at that announcement called Software, Computers, and Image Preparation and study the latter part of it.